Hi, it's Nicole for Simple Stories, and today I am cutting into the Simple Vintage Believe collection. I am going to go ahead and start pulling out all of the supplies for this. When I first saw the Simple Vintage Believe collection, it very much gave me those kind of traditional nostalgic vibes that I got from years and years of holidays spent with my grandparents. So I went through my photos and I found this photo from December of 2022. My kids and I came by a couple days before Christmas to visit them in their apartment. This was the first year that they were in the assisted living facility. So we brought them some baked goods and kind of hung out and had just a little kind of quiet Christmas celebration. And so I really try to match collections with photos that kind of give me the same feeling when I look at them, if that makes sense. And I had shared this in a recent Dark Side Challenge video where I was cleaning and doing a lot of prep. I prepped all of the Simple Stories holiday lines with at least one layout. So I do have a sketch pulled out. It is paid content, so I'm not going to share that. And I think the sketch had two smaller photos on it. I am going to modify that for a slightly larger photo. I want to say this is about a 4:5. The aspect ratio is a little off just because it was taken with my phone and I didn't want to cut any of the people out. And then I'm going to add a small kind of 2x2, 2.5x2.5 inch size photo of the little bundt cakes that my daughter had made and brought with us. And the first thing that I always do is I will always flip through the papers because that is my favorite product. Anytime I can, cut into fresh paper, I know it's going to be a good time. I chose this kind of craft colored, it's got like a kind of like a grungy dot pattern on it. I really liked this for the background, and then I'm gonna grab a couple other of like my favorite B-sides. There was this pretty red plaid. This green gingham is from the coordinating like basic cardstocks that match the collection, and I'm gonna cut them into strips and then kind of start getting the papers and the photo placement figured out before I start my hand stitching. One of the things that I really liked about the sketch that I chose was the fact that it had space to kind of put like a vertical border of like elements or die cuts. I started with that intention. When we get a little bit further, I will kind of deviate from that. But I do look at sketches with intent, if that makes sense. Whether it is the amount of photos, the orientation of the photos. Sometimes I'm looking more for where embellishments are going to go because maybe I want to use a specific style of embellishment or I want to do like a specific type of technique, and sometimes I want to have less modifying of a sketch. So I kind of look at sketches a little bit differently, just kind of depending on what I want that end result to be. To get started, I did a quick sort through the floral bits and pieces, and this is mostly just to kind of see what's in here. Some of these I felt like were either really big or I didn't want to use any of like the Christmas trees because those to me are like a vertical element, and I want things that can kind of go any direction because they're going to be coming off of one of those pattern papers in like a column, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to go through the regular bits and pieces pack. Again, I'm just kind of looking to see what's in here. And I tend to do a quick sort of immediate no's, meaning either color, size, icon doesn't work for the layout that I have in mind. And then I just make another pile of things that I think could work. And it just saves me a little bit of time later when I pull those back out to kind of start putting the finishing touches together. So I am putting the photos down, or not the photos, the papers, which these are pretty much covering about half of the right side of the layout. I did go ahead and I wanted to use this border from the sticker sheet, and when I went to put it down, I realized it wasn't exactly 12 inches tall. So I just cut it in the middle, and that gutter or that space is gonna be hidden behind a photo, so it's gonna be fine. Drawing some pencil lines to do some hand stitching, and I like to just do my hand stitching off camera so you guys don't have to sit through kind of the boring process. I actually did, I want to say like it was something like 4 to 6 layouts. I started and got to the point of holes being poked, and I just took a whole pile of layouts downstairs and spent 2 days stitching and kind of watching TV, and did more of like a batch process, and I actually got through a lot of stuff. So I might try to do this more often and see if it kind of speeds up my workflow a little bit better. Fast forward, came back, and my stitching is done. I've got my 2 photos here. I just mounted them on some white cardstock scraps. And then I pulled from the foam stickers this It's a Wonderful Life title piece. I like what it says, but I also like that it fits kind of around the corner of the photo. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I chose a sketch that I thought I was going to do. I've done the technique before. I did it with like the first poo line. I really like those sketches that kind of give you the ability to do almost like a border scene, but it's in a vertical format. And so I'm going to start to fill in with the floral bits and pieces and kind of go with that concept. And then I'm going to basically bring in a second layer because I kept finding more things that I felt like just really fit the theme and kind of the mood of the people in my photos. So I just kind of went through and picked out some of my favorite floral pieces, ones that I felt like contrasted well when they were put next to each other. And like I said, just kind of fit the overall theme that I'm going with. Some of the bits and pieces in the floral pack to me read a little bit more like outdoor winter. And then some of them kind of remind me more of like my grandmother. Every year for Christmas, somebody ends up giving her one of those like potted Christmas plants. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I never pronounce it right. It starts with a P. They're very pretty. She almost always has one. For as long as I can remember, it sat in front of the fireplace. They don't have a fireplace anymore, so it actually sits on her microwave. And so I did try to use some of those just kind of as a nod to her. And then when I went through the bits and pieces pack was when I was really finding a lot of these kind of vintage style ornaments. And they used to have these on their tree for years. Since they have moved into the assisted living facility, they have downsized their tree. And when we helped them like pack up and move, I actually took like a bin of a bunch of their Christmas ornaments because she was kind of transitioning into just a little bit more like simplified decorating style with her tree. So she just kind of has like the modern bulbs. I think they're all like red now. So I wanted to find a way to use these ornaments. And so I had started kind of making this cluster around the bottom right corner of the photo and filling in around that title piece. I'm leaving the spot above the smaller photo to put my journaling strips. And then this is kind of when it becomes like I've taken off from the sketch because I want to use these ornaments. I want to fill in. I want to add more. So I kind of have that vertical border with the florals. And then I'm going to almost do like a second layer over that in kind of like a zigzag around the photos, but still in that like vertical orientation, and just really come in and start mixing things like phrases, the little, it's not a Polaroid frame. Oh gosh, what are those called? like, they're not transparencies. What are those called with the little, you put them in the machine and you click through. I know what they are. Just the word is blanking. I tucked one of those behind the photo. And then I'm going to bring in, like I said, those traditional nostalgic style ornaments and I want to say the wrapped packages and like gifts. I felt like those really leaned into the same type of like theme that I'm going with. And then with most embellishing or even scene building, cluster building, I try to start with the largest pieces first to kind of make sure that they are as balanced as I can get them, and then fill in and decrease the size of the embellishment as I go, all the way down to things like the little stars from the foam stickers, or bringing in something like enamel dots or sequins, gems. I like to bring those in to fill in just where you kind of have open gaps, and it just gives you kind of the ability to spread the color around a little bit. And like I said, just kind of fill in. I have my journaling strips, and I am going to use a ruler to try to get these as level as I can. That smaller photo is at an angle, so I couldn't really use that as a guide for my journaling. And I did go ahead and stick a little holly die cut underneath there. Now, as you can see, when I first started putting the journaling strips, I left space between the bottom one and the photo. Sometimes when I have a photo tilted like this, to my eye, it looks better to go ahead and have the journaling touch the photo. To me, this just helps everything feel like everything belongs together and nothing is sort of floating. So finished up my layout. I've got some detail photos here. As always, I appreciate every view, every comment, every like. I am getting close to 5K, so I need to come up with some kind of celebration for that. But for now, I'm going to leave you guys here, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.